Hello, welcome to Teachers Who Coach. This interview is part of a group that's been set up called Teachers Who Coach on LinkedIn, and we have a mission to connect coaches to educators and bring a coaching culture to the world of education. The group's amazing, it's a really active group. There are group posts and conversation. We have live meetings. I've just come out of a live meeting to go into this interview, and there are conversations going on all the time. And really, for educators and for coaches, it's a great opportunity for them to connect with each other and to connect with like-minded educators looking to make a transformational impact by empowering the amazing people who work with our students and the students themselves, of course. If you're a teacher, you can sign up to the LinkedIn group, which we'll have a link in the description of this video on YouTube. And part of that is having available to you a directory of coaches who will give you a free discovery session so that you can find out about coaching and exactly what it is and how it can support you as an educator and support your school. I am joined today by Nicola Holloway. She is an experienced leader in international education, having worked in Germany, India and Vietnam, and is currently based in Bangkok. And she has established Leaderly, which seeks to empower leaders for global education through personalised professional learning. Welcome, Nicola.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Did I get everything right in that introduction?
Absolutely. There are a few more countries under my belt, but definitely those ones for sure.
Wow. I mean, if we just start with that, what have you learned from being an educator in so many different and varied contexts?
So I think one of the most important things that I've learned from working in different cultures around the world is that everybody comes into education bringing their best intent. Nobody's a teacher who comes to school going, I'm going to do a bad job today. Everyone's coming in, giving it 110% every day for the children. And that might look different in different places around the world, and people might interpret things different, people might communicate in different ways, but around the world everyone's there for the learning, everyone's there for the students.
That's wonderful. I learned that in my first school going into education, how having worked in a domestic setting, you have to leave a lot of assumptions behind to work with colleagues from around the world. We're teachers who coach. What do you imagine coaching can do to support educators who are going into international education?
We all bring experience. So I endeavour to build diverse teams, and everyone on that team is bringing some experience. So as a coach, you really want to draw from that experience and have people be empowered and enabled to move forward. So it's that match of bringing your experience and your growth mindset to ongoing personalized professional development. And that's what coaching is. It's targeting what the individual needs, where they are, to move forward.
I can imagine the variety of settings that you have pose a lot of challenges. My experience has been, wherever I've worked, that there might be a limited recognition or awareness of the idea of coaching and the coaching that we recognise. What challenges do you face in bringing coaching or a coaching culture to education settings?
I think I've been in international education for 20 years. And when I started, I don't think people really spoke about coaching. And then I think a little bit later on, coaching kind of came in and people saw it. And it's still prevalent in a few places, as in coaching something you do if you're not very good, as opposed to, I always say to people, we just have the Olympics. Where would any of those athletes be if they didn't have a coach? Right? Coaching is what good people do. That's what coaching's for. It's to keep growing. And so I think one of the challenges is that mindset that some people have. I've really seen that change over the years. And here in Bangkok, we actually have an amazing coaching group that meets regularly with all international educators from all different types of international schools. As we know, there might be British schools, American schools, people who have expats as their clientele, people who have local families as their clientele, all these different mixes. And everyone now is talking coaching. So I think it's something that's really blossomed and grown, and people are definitely seeing more of the value of coaching for students, for educators, and for leaders.
There's so much that you can take from that. I mean, what is it about the international setting and the need for different people from different backgrounds to work together that has allowed coaching to grow from your perspective?
I think international schools can be a hotbed of innovation. And I'm not saying that coaching is an innovation, but once something starts to gain traction in an international school setting or international schools, it grows pretty quickly because people, on the whole, I think, are quite willing to try new things and, give things a go. So I think that's where once the traction started, people are now understanding that coaching is something that's really common and that lots of people do. And also, I think I really see more of a transition kind of between people who've been in other, businesses or other fields before they've moved into education. People, I think what I'm saying is, like, people don't just stay educated lives, people transition in and out, and they're bringing that, like I said before, experience. And they've been coached in other fields and want coaching in schools.
I love the touching on the cross-pollination of experience and professions, which can be so beneficial to students who work with educators who've had a past, and for educators to move out of education, because you can be very institutionalized as a teacher, and going into coaching and exposing yourself to people from other professions and other industries is really, really powerful. Your previous answers, what got me excited before, was that you mentioned in your last answer the recognition of the different opportunities of the impact that coaching can have throughout the school. Tell me more about that.
I'm going to go from my experience. So I worked in a school in India, and we had instructional coaches. And actually, I think my first experience of international schools having instructional coaches was probably about 15 years ago, when I visited a school here in Bangkok, and I sort of went, oh, that's great. And then I didn't really go any further. I was just like, oh, that's really cool. I really like that idea. And then I moved into a school that had a dedicated instructional coaching team. And I was a leader in the school, and so I was working quite a lot with those coaches, and they got me into understanding Jim Knight's approach to instructional coaching, and so that was quite exciting. And I really saw the impact that it had on the teachers. So one of the things that I've done through ongoing sort of professional learning is thinking about our middle level leaders and our senior leaders, and thinking about how we can use coaching with those different groups, because I'm very much we lead by modeling, we lead by showing the impact and the importance. So at my school right now, we're implementing a professional growth process that involves coaching. So the first thing I did was do leadership coaching with my middle level leaders, so they all had that experience. We all read a book around coaching, the coaching habit. We started using those questions so that people had that experience of coaching as a leader, and rather than saying, our teachers need to start with it actually started with our leadership team.
That's part of growing the culture out, of being able to do it at different levels. I enjoyed doing something similar to actually empower the teaching assistants at one school who, I'm in Malawi, and one thing we've got is that we've got teaching assistants who are incredible people and leaders and practitioners who just don't have the qualifications to be a teacher, but they can be empowered they can be empowered through coaching to grow as leaders as well. What are the greatest benefits of coaching for educators and educational leaders?
I actually did a little bit of research on this, and I'm going to do more research on this as part of my ongoing studies. And I think it parallels what you see in other institutions in that confidence increases, skills increase, and there's a lot more, one of the things you hear regularly is about imposter syndrome. And I think coaching for leaders can really help that reframe on imposter syndrome. It can help people know that they are doing a good job and also develop the skills that they need, feel that they could take next. And so I think it's really powerful on multiple dimensions.
I love that you touched on the imposter syndrome, and I think you mentioned that in your bio. What is it about education around, I don't know whether it's accountability or self-efficacy, what is it about the education profession that means that imposter syndrome is so prevalent?
We do a really important job. When people put their most precious things in your hands, their children, and you're there every day trying to make a difference, sometimes self-doubt creeps in. Am I doing a good job? Can I actually do this? And the answer is yes, you can. And it's not only education. The more I've dug into imposter syndrome, the more people are talking about it around the world. And I think it's something that's quite a commonality in humans rather than something that's education specific. And we have a lot of reason to doubt ourselves, and we're hearing all these different pressures from outside, educators should, from the news, from different places. Sometimes it's a case of stop, breathe, we're doing okay. We're doing the best we can with the resources we have available to us today. Let's just value what we can do.
It's a really, really important message for educators to hear, and you can imagine how the coaching space can allow for them to explore the emotions around that, and for them to develop the strength and the resilience and the confidence in their ability and their impact, that they really need to get over that imposter syndrome. What in implementing coaching or in your leadership generally, what challenges have you faced in bringing a coaching approach to the schools that you work with?
So I think it's about the time. Time is hard, and it's I think as leaders, we have to spend time doing what we value. And it's really easy to spend time on the urgent things that crop up. So carving out that time for coaching is one of the, and I think around the world, whenever I ask about any leadership implementation in a school, time is always the answer. So, but for us, we've intentionally put time aside for a coaching process as part of our sort of regular meeting schedules, as part of our professional growth process. So it's inbuilt in a system. That takes time. It takes time to get the time. So it's that, I think, having everyone on board that this is where we want to spend what precious time we have and what we value.
It feels, you're right, it's the getting the school on board from the top all the way through. And the idea, what you mentioned around time hit me. Have you ever read the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? The 4 quadrants of Stephen Covey there, about the most important quadrant being the really important but the not urgent. So, and for me, what you just said there seems to really chime home, that to actually let go of some of the urgent things, to actually focus on the things that are important but are not pushing themselves to the front. Is that part of convincing a place and growing the coaching culture, do you think?
Absolutely. And that matrix of important and how we spend our time rather than the important and how we don't want to spend our time, right? That urgency is something that we can either stop, delegate, there's different ways of handling that so that you can focus your time where you want it to be spent. Times. And other times, you have every intention and something comes through the door and you're like, I have to drop what I'm doing right now and deal with this.
Unbelievable. Yeah, completely. As an educator who's been introduced to coaching, what are the benefits that you've had personally for having been coached, having become a coach, that you would like to share with anybody who watches this video so that they feel that they should get involved with coaching and bringing coaching to their establishment?
So I think personally, when I've been coached myself, it's helped me to address my own personal barriers. You said something earlier about the mind space and emotions. That one of the important things about coaching is the confidentiality piece. So it's okay for teachers, for educators, whatever your role is, to come forward and say, actually, I'm worried about this, or can't see the way forward with this. And so very recently I got an important interview to do around for something I really wanted. And I went to a coaching session. I was like, and they were like, well, what does it look like? I'm like, it just looks like a wall. My emotions are like a wall. Wow. And the question was, well, how do you get around that wall? How big is the wall? And we sort of talked through it. And I left the coaching conversation as a coachee, as a client, feeling really empowered and knowing, because I got that power within me to get around the wall. I just couldn't see the wood for the trees. So having those guided conversations really helped me to unpack what it was that I needed to be successful. And so if people are worried about coaching and not quite sure what it is, it's very much a strengths-based approach. And it's about a leader that I worked with a few years ago said it's not just about empowering, it's also about enabling. So it's giving you the emotional empowerment and kind of those skills to get through. And more often than not, what to do yourself. And through coaching, you can kind of unlock what's going to work for you. So it's not about being judged. It's not about anything. You can say what you need to say in a coaching comments, as long as it's legal and safe. Then you can. It's a safe space for you to unpack the issues that you're facing, the challenges, or what you want to achieve. Right, your aspirations can be unpacked there as well.
Thank you so much for that. Empowering and enabling, two crucial words to understanding the impact coaching can have. As you're speaking through that, I think of many educators, and I'm thinking domestically as much as internationally, for who if they're not maybe necessarily doing the IB curriculum, are used to having to teach in a certain way and having to conform to standards, having to fit into a box. Coaching is very different in its nature, around it being so unique and bespoke to the individual. Like you say, you had what you needed. That metaphor around the wall really spoke to you. Can you speak around the experience of coaching for somebody who's never been coached, about what makes it so unique and so powerful, particularly for educators who feel that they might be penned in and coloured into a prevailing system?
Yeah, I think in many ways, actually, some of those domestic systems are embracing coaching quite well. So I know that the coaching in the US, for leaders and in the UK is taking off quite a lot, and that's the value of that is being published in research. So the research is there to back up the things that we're saying. I think on a personal level, when I meet with people, I always talk about that important balance. the important balance between who you are and your context. Because, I mean, in IB schools, we know that context is key to any kind of implementation. And it's kind of part of what we spouse and talk about. And so when someone comes to me and they say, you know, I'm interested in coaching, can you tell me about it? And I'm like, well, what we're going to do is you're going to tell me your context. You're going to tell me what you think success would look like. And then together we can co-create a pathway to get there. And I'll help you. I'll be your, you know, we say the guide on the ride. That's what I'll be. And I'll help you to get to where you want to be. And so that's that key piece. It's not off the peg because you're not off the peg and your context is not off the peg. So it's that unique blend of those that makes the body of the coach.
No, and for me, there's something in that teachers know inherently because they've worked with students and every student is unique and individual. So it makes sense and it follows that teachers can be amazing coaches. Coaching has come from the corporate world primarily, and I get the impression generally that teachers are very natural. Are coaches quite naturally, even if they're not capital C coaches, they're doing so much of the practices. With that said, if you're a teacher going into coaching, what challenges do teachers have particularly in adopting a coaching mindset?
I think, you know, that idea of the advice monster, it's really hard as a coach to sometimes tame that advice monster. And we have a lot more experience of life than our children, particularly, you know, when you're my age and you've got 5-year-olds, there's a lot more experience of life that you have. I think one of the beauty of being an IB teacher, particularly a PYP teacher, is that we are curious, we are inquirers. And so that, I think, makes it a lot easier for IB teachers to be coaches. If your background's more, you know, a more directed system, it might be a little bit harder to open up those coaching conversations if you're used to giving information. And so that could be a bit of a challenge. I will say, I actually found it much more scary to coach a group of high school students, which I did at the end of last year. That there was an amazing project that they were working with the company Lush, and they had to do a presentation. And I went in there and I was really scared coaching the children, the students. They were, you know, they're 16, and I was like, oh, give me an adult any day. These guys are really going to. And it was wonderful. It was so rewarding, and that's something that, you know, is really important to mention too. When you're a coach and when you're a coachee, it's a two-way process. You're both learning all the time. And so I learned so much from those students. It was so enjoyable. And I think we spent about 6 hours in the coaching process, and then I went with them to do their presentation. And I was like, oh, this is, you know, it's so powerful.
It's so pleasing to hear a story around how coaching can be utilised as part of a pedagogy with young people. And I've worked with a couple of organisations researching, you know, the redevelopment of curriculum generally, moving away from knowledge only because of artificial intelligence, etc., into increasing skills, into character qualities and the rest. What are your thoughts around coaching skills as a raft of skills being a part of a curriculum that young people encounter?
I think that's a really interesting idea. I've not seen it in practice. I think having everybody learn coaching skills, because really, when we think about it, it's about questioning, which we all need to do, and more importantly, it's about listening. And if we listen to each other and, you know, really be intentional about thinking about what the other person says and being present for them, we can solve a lot of problems. So I think it would be wonderful to have it as a curriculum. And yeah, I don't have anything else to say. That would be wonderful.
Sorry, just a question that came into the head there. If going back to teachers considering coaching and bringing coaching in, if you could choose 3 words, 3 things that would help teachers take on coaching or take on the idea of coaching, what 3 words might you suggest they consider or have?
So, in terms of the skills they need, or in terms of why they should be coaching?
Oh, let's go for skills they need.
I'd say patience, empathy, and probably some vulnerability and kindness. That's 4. Sorry. And I think it's about that human connection. It's about, like I said before, listening to other people and understanding their journey and helping them with that journey.
I couldn't agree more. Can you tell? Yeah, thank you so much for everything that you shared with us so far. Can you tell us about Leadably? You've set up this organisation for yourself. Tell me what you do.
So really, my aim is to coach leaders, growing good leaders, because we can all be fabulous leaders, and leaders have such an impact on teaching. It's one of the key factors in a school that impacts the learning that happens there. So again, it comes back to what we were talking about earlier, that imposter syndrome, that confidence, that not necessarily, the one off the peg training doesn't necessarily prepare you for leadership. Leadership is all that you learn in your leadership training and more. And often the things that people don't talk about in, how to run an effective team or how to have a meeting are things like your teacher's going to walk in through the door and they're going to have faced ... the night before. And that ... nobody leaves it at the door. There used to be the saying of you leave it at the classroom door and you walk in. Nobody does that because we're human. Yeah. And so having those, heuristic intelligence, those emotional intelligences to work with other people and help them to navigate their emotions, help them to navigate their situations, because they are the experts in learning, right? When you're working with a teacher, they are the experts in learning. And as a coach, we can help them to do that. And as a coach, we can help leaders to navigate the skills, the competencies, and of the emotions that people are going to bring to them, and just be really effective in what they're doing. Because I would say, I feel so much more than in other organizations, we are people driven. Yeah. So it's about how we work with people. And so Leadably, I've gone off on a tangent. So Leadably is about one-to-one coaching for leaders, whether that's aspiring leaders, new leaders, or established leaders. And I've worked with all of those in one-to-one context. I'm also setting up an online community called the Coordinators Club. And that's about providing support for, in the first instance, coordinators in IB schools to be effective at that leadership role. Because yes, you do your IB training, which is fabulous. And that gives you a lot about the philosophy and the IB content. And then I want to provide a safe, psychologically safe, nurturing space for coordinators to do that extra and to do that well and to manage their time and to be there for each other.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. We've got our Teachers Who Coach community of hundreds. We're, as we're recording this, well into 350, 360. Would you like to share any opportunities for the community to connect with you and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you join me on my LinkedIn site, which you can access, it's Nicola Holloway. You can see links to make a what I call a collaboration call. So you can make a collaboration call, and I love talking leadership. So make a call, connect with me. You can also go onto my website, which is www.leaderbly, LEADERBLY. So I forgot how to spell then. So leaderbly.com. And I'm also on Instagram. I'm not that great at posting on there. So many of the socials you can find me.
Well played. I struggle with Instagram as well. It's the one that is hard to keep up. Nicola, thank you so much for your time today. Is there anything else that you'd like to share before we wrap things up?
I'm going to share a quick story, if that's all right.
Please do.
So I was thinking when you were talking about the students, coaching is absolutely fabulous for our friends who sometimes struggle to regulate, and sometimes, we have a student in our class who needs a lot of time. I have over the last year spent some time coaching with individual students who are working themselves through some emotional conflicts, some challenges, and the coaching situation there, when you're helping them to navigate their own emotions, is really powerful. It takes a long time. You can't just do it in 5 minutes, but longer term, it can have a real impact. And one of the students that came to me was very dysregulated, very emotional about a situation, and then ended up leaving with a plan to actually go and propose, because we don't do MUN in our school, actually left with a plan to go and propose MUN to our director, went off and made an appointment and proposed that to the director. So coaching can be used to navigate all sorts of situations.
It shows the versatility and the range of applications coaching can have, and it can affect every student, and it can affect educators, like you're saying with Leaderbly, supporting teachers at every stage of their career. And you've got that going on all those fronts. You've got yourself a coaching culture, haven't you? Nicola, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation with me and for Teachers Who Coach. And we'll speak again soon. Thank you very much for thank you very much for watching this, and feel free to click the links below. We'll put all of the links and everything we've covered today into the notes, and you can connect with Nicola and you can connect with the group that way. Take care. Have a good day.